Since 1934, Iowa's farmers have turned to the Iowa Farm Bureau spokesman as their trusted news source. Now, the Spokesman Speaks. Listen in and hear from leading experts on topics important to farmers and agriculture. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to our May 2nd edition of the Spokesman Speaks podcast. I'm Andrew Wheeler, and today's episode features 3 guests. First, we'll introduce you to a central Iowa farm couple who got into the meat goat business 20 years ago, almost by accident, and now they're passing along the lessons they've learned to other farmers who are exploring that niche market. Then, we'll bring on Adam Koppes with Iowa Farm Bureau's Renew Rural Iowa program to talk about the services that Farm Bureau offers rural entrepreneurs, including educational seminars, mentoring, promotion, and financial assistance. In fact, they're holding one of their half-day seminars for rural entrepreneurs in Dyersville early next month, and Adam's going to tell you more about that. So if you know someone who's running a business in your own local community, you'll definitely want to share this episode with them. First up, Eric and Deb Finch, who raise meat goats near State Center. Eric and Deb recently presented at Iowa Farm Bureau's day-long Acres of Opportunity Conference in Cedar Rapids. Acres of Opportunity brought together farmers to discuss a variety of niche farming opportunities, and the Finches hosted 2 standing-room-only sessions on meat goats and niche ag marketing in general. Spokesman editor Tom Block caught up with Eric and Deb afterwards. Tom takes it from here.
Deb and Eric, thanks for joining me today. You gave a presentation here at the Acres of Opportunity Conference on Meat Goat 101. Tell us a little bit about your farm and your operation.
We run an average of around 125 to 150 female meat goats, typically a Boer Kiko cross. Our main market is direct marketing to consumers, which is mostly ethnics in the central Iowa area. Are doing some contract grazing and looking at some other avenues as well, but that's kind of our operation in a nutshell.
How long have you been raising goats, and how did you get started in this?
20 plus years, just over 20 years. How we got started was a little bit of a funny story. My husband, we had some sheep, always ended up with a few orphan lambs, and my husband wondered, well, hey, I know some people that we'll take an orphan lamb and raise it on a goat, and it will be a nurse nanny, and we'll raise them. And we thought, well, that's a lot cheaper than milk replacer. And so he bought a doe and 2 kids for $100 and had some Hispanic employees at the hog farm that he was working at. And they said, well, let me try and sell those kids for you. And within a matter of a few weeks, they had the 2 kids sold for the price that we had paid for the whole set. So we had made our money back already. It honestly just really mushroomed from there, word of mouth in the Hispanic community. We had people start showing up at our farm. I hear you have goats. And we're like, well, no. We started to see a need for that ethnic meat, and then went out and bought a herd and kind of started from there. We had sheep already, so the facilities and stuff were in place. We just switched over to the goat production.
Do you find it's important to remain flexible? Your farm has obviously changed over 20 years.
Yeah, I would say that is the key to it. I don't know how many times we've redesigned the barn lots. I think we probably stayed with the same lot design for about 10 years now. Other than that, it seemed like we were always changing as we grew. We found out what worked, what didn't work, what kind of fencing we want, what kind of fencing we don't want, and with the goats, we're always grazing a different piece of property somewhere. So it's a lot of electric fence and moving fence and that type of stuff, just to be adaptable. And really, even on the marketing side, it starts as Hispanic, and then it Middle Eastern, and then Southern African countries where their refugees were coming out. We just had to be fluid and have the size of animal that each group really wanted.
You mentioned when you started this, you were one of the few doing it. There's been some growth in the industry. Is there opportunity for more people to look at this type of raising goats?
I would say yes. I mean, currently right now, I think the last census from the USDA was showing that about 2/3 of the goat that's consumed in the U.S. is imported product. So why import it when we can produce it domestically?
How have you been able to sustain success over the years, changing your operation, getting ideas, networking with other farmers? What's been the keys to that?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say definitely reaching out to, I know when we first got started, a lot of our contacts were southern U.S. Because that's where the goats were. There was nobody up this direction that raised goats, which they were helpful to a point. But some of their, for example, if they go out, what they're grazing on in Western Texas is obviously a very different environment than it is here. So that didn't always correlate. It was a lot of trial and error, learning. The big thing with goats, one of the biggest issues can be parasites, worms, and managing that. So learning how to not eradicate them, but how to control the parasite level in them. And there's several different ways to do that. That's been one of the biggest tools that has come out in the goat industry in general, with how to manage the parasites and control them and monitor your herd health that way.
And as you talked about, there's a lot of flexibility. This is something people could, as you mentioned, add to a cattle operation, or if they just have a few acres and they want to have just a few head. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I would say, goats do very good on controlling brush, consuming weeds. So from that standpoint, there's a lot of cattle pastures that, are overgrown, not fully utilized by the cow. So the goat can go and co-graze with that. And it really does fit well for that young family that's bought an acreage. They got 5-6 acres, looking for some way to generate some income on that acreage and give the kids. It's kind of like the backyard poultry industry has boomed. Goats kind of that same way, because you can run 10 head on just a couple acres in the backyard and provide a small income or even meat for the freezer and for the family to consume.
What advice do you have for other people who are just starting out, whether it's raising goats, raising hops, or any of the other things that have been talked about at this conference? People who are looking to start a niche operation, what advice?
Definitely research first, which conferences like this are definitely a good starting point. I would say we have seen way too many people that have thought, I'll get goats, I can make a quick buck, and within a couple years, they're out of goats, not producing because they didn't do the research first. I think they were just very nearsighted. As with any livestock, goats too, there's good years and bad years. So being prepared to be in it for the long haul if you want to do it. But definitely that education prior to doing some research background. Okay, what does it take to raise them? What breeds do I want? What's my market going to be? And just doing that extra research prior to getting the animals. Everybody wants to get the animals because they're cute and they're fun and I'm ready for them, but making sure that you know what they require and what they need beforehand. Very similar to, if you get a puppy, you got to start small. You need to have the food ready and the pen ready and this ready before you go out and get the dog. Same kind of concept, making sure you're doing your research before you get the livestock.
You started out, as we've talked about, 20 years ago, you young farmers at the time. Why is it important for you guys to give back and now be at the podium presenting this information?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, it was probably 20 years ago that somebody approached me and says, hey, why don't you be a Farm Bureau member? I said, I don't know, so we started down that path. And then 2 years later, it's like, why aren't you on the Farm Bureau County Board? And I'm like, I don't know. And so next thing you know, I'm serving on, representing Iowa Farm Bureau on the American Farm Bureau Sheep and Goat Advisory Committee back in the mid-2000s and traveling to California and D.C. and talking about goats and sheep. And I thought, this is really cool. It was a way for us to learn and to educate other people about what we were doing. And, it was just a great opportunity for us. And then serving on the Young Farmer Advisory Committee in, late 2000s, a long time ago now, it seems like. So it's just been great to build that network of people with common interest and mindset, and they face some of the same challenges we were. And next thing you know, it's like, oh, we're working with this bank because they're open to that, or we're buying our supplies from this supplier because they really know what they're doing. And for us, starting probably from nothing was building that network of same age, like-minded type of people, and Farm Bureau gave us that avenue.
You've got to be intrigued by the adaptability Eric and Deb were referring to there. the ability to integrate meat goats into a wide variety of situations. But I thought that Deb offered a great caveat there as well. Raising goats might sound easy, but it's important to do your homework first, and it really helps to tap into other farmers who've been down that road before. Of course, that's where Farm Bureau comes in, with conferences like Acres of Opportunity and a whole host of opportunities to network with your farming peers locally and sometimes around the country. Now, you probably already knew that Farm Bureau offers some great networking opportunities for farmers, but you might not realize the services we offer to a wide range of rural entrepreneurs. For more on that, we'll bring on Adam Koppes of Iowa Farm Bureau's Renew Rural Iowa program, which has been helping rural entrepreneurs and businesses since 2006. Tom Block has the story.
Adam, thanks for joining me here today. Why does Iowa Farm Bureau believe it's important to support rural entrepreneurs and businesses?
Yeah, thanks, Tom, for having me. I mean, it's pretty simple. So with a large percentage of Iowa farmers working off-farm for supplemental employment, Iowa Farm Bureau recognizes that the need for rural Iowa vitality is essential. Those rural entrepreneurs and their associated employment opportunities are important to build the overall health and strength of our towns all across the state. So the Iowa Farm Bureau has been supportive of our entrepreneurial community for a very long time and continues to be so to this day.
What inspired Iowa Farm Bureau to launch the Renew Rural Iowa program in 2006?
Yeah, Iowa Farm Bureau has actually been supportive of rural businesses for longer than that, for almost 30 years now directly. But the program itself was formalized into this Renew Rural Iowa program in 2006, essentially to put a renewed focus on our efforts to support rural entrepreneurs. So that's a multifaceted approach that we can get into, but it came from the understanding that in order to have a thriving small town, you need both the farms outside of town and the Main Street businesses in the community themselves.
What are the ways that Iowa Farm Bureau provides support to rural entrepreneurs and businesses?
Yeah, we have what we call a four-pronged approach. We're trying to be sort of comprehensive in how we go about it. So we start with education. These come in the form of what we call our Journey to Your Vision seminars, which are half-day peer-to-peer educational seminars with business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs aimed at essentially trying to work through the various stages of business growth that a new or growing business will encounter and try to help those businesses get through whatever those stages may be. So that can be as simple as how do I file my taxes and as complex as how do I manage an organization with 500 employees. That would be the educational component. In addition, we do what's called mentoring or guidance. So we are always available for any entrepreneur or any business owner as sort of a sounding board or a source of information. So there may be a question about a particular subject as it relates to a particular industry, and our job is to sort of, if we don't have the answer, we need to know who we can refer that business owner to. In addition to that, we've long felt that there are wonderful stories in all of our communities, unique, inspiring businesses throughout our entire state, but highlighting those stories hasn't always been done well. And so what we did was create the Renew Rural Iowa Entrepreneur Award, which is literally meant to highlight, as I said, unique and inspiring stories that are out there in our communities so that folks can see all the different things that we do here in Iowa. And it really is pretty crazy when you start to get into it, because you start to understand that there are anything and everything that you could ever think of is being done somewhere in this state. It's kind of cool. And then finally, in addition to all that, we have direct financial programs available to select businesses and entrepreneurs. Essentially, if they are looking for growth financing or growth capital, we have that as well. We found a long time ago that the traditional sources of capital outside of, say, your local bank tend to overlook our rural communities. And so we tried to step up and provide an opportunity for entrepreneurs who need it. Not all of them do, but some may want it. So we have that program called the Rural Vitality Funds as well.
So there's a lot going on and has been. You're busy all the time, it seems like. What kind of impact have you seen from these programs and efforts?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. The sort of overall headline is, and this is since we started tracking it, but since 2006, we've had over $150 million in economic impact in our rural communities. The easiest way to think about this is our direct financing activities support over 200 jobs annually. So that's 200 families that are directly supported through our financing efforts. In addition to that, those seminars, for example, that I mentioned, we've had over 3,000 attendees. So that's your business owners or your management of businesses all throughout the state. We do 5 a year. We rotate them and try to hit basically every community that we possibly can. And all of that is all fellow Iowans all across the state. In addition to that, some more examples. American Farm Bureau has a Rural Entrepreneurship Challenge, which is basically a business plan competition for rural entrepreneurs. For perspective, Iowa entrepreneurs who have entered that competition, it's been held for 8 years. Iowa entrepreneurs have won 4 of those 8 years. So they've been named the overall winner, businesses here in Iowa, for half the existence of that national challenge. In addition to that, I think we've had 12 top 10 finalists in that challenge. And so what that all adds up to is over 50% of the competition's prize money, these are in the form of grants, well over $100,000 has been won and brought back by those businesses to the state of Iowa. In addition to that, those Entrepreneur Award winners, we've had 50 winners to date, about 5 per year that we hand out. Just as a little anecdote, my favorite from last year as an example is a company called Great River Maple over in Garnavillo, Iowa. It is literally, well, first off, the products, maple syrup made from Iowa maple trees, the products are incredible if you have a sweet tooth, but it's a really cool example of a company and an entrepreneur utilizing the resources that we have here in the state to create a world-class product, and those products have won literally worldwide recognition. The sort of plus side to that entrepreneur and that business doing what they're doing in Garnavillo is that it leads to increased local employment opportunities in that area. And in addition, there's also local tourism opportunities because they have their annual Sugar Fest, which I have yet to attend, but it is on my list, that brings people into the community to kind of check out what they're doing. Another sort of anecdote that's also kind of cool that sticks out to me, our most recent award winner is a company called Aronson Woodworking in Prohl, Iowa. They are utilizing the taken down ash trees from the surrounding area to create world-class designer furniture that has kind of become all the rage or trendy on the coasts. And so it's this really cool example of something being upcycled, for lack of a better term, into something absolutely beautiful, and it's all coming directly from the abundance that this state provides. So it's a really cool example of 2 award winners that are out there doing things that you may not know about, but significantly contribute to the resilience of our communities. Another cool program that is more recent is called the Ag Startup Engine. This is a program done in collaboration with Iowa State University, its Ag Entrepreneurial Initiative, and 20 other organizations across this state, all of whom have come together to create an early stage or a startup support program for entrepreneurs in ag technology. This program was started 6 years ago, and so for some perspective, there's been 27 companies that have entered the program to date. Every single one of them is touching agriculture in some way, and through their efforts and the support in the background of this Ag Startup Engine program, they've created well over 150 jobs in this state thus far. And they've also attracted millions upon millions of dollars in investment capital to this state as a result of what they're doing. So it's a really new but also really exciting addition to the sort of overall support that we try to provide here for our entrepreneurs that are trying to build things in this state.
I would like to talk that ag startup engine. I know some of those businesses have gone on to become serial entrepreneurs. They'll start a business and maybe sell it or transfer it to other ownership or investment interests and go on to start a new business.
Yeah, that's a fairly common thing amongst this crowd. The serial entrepreneur. Once they get the entrepreneurial bug, it sort of never leaves them. So yeah, there are multiple examples of entrepreneurs that have come through our Ag Startup Engine program that have then been acquired or sold to a larger entity and that have then turned around and started something again. So the most recent example is a gentleman by the name of Joel Harris. He and his father were involved in a company called Harris Vaccines up in Ames that eventually was bought by Merck. And a couple years later now, they have started a company called GenVax, which is essentially a new animal health vaccine company that has just gotten started and is just now accepted into the Ag Startup Engine program. So that's a great example of Iowa entrepreneurs who built something. It worked out for everyone involved, and then after a period of time, they got that itch again, and now they're, instead of building somewhere else, they're building right here in Iowa, which is exactly what we want. We just need like 10,000 more of them.
Absolutely. You mentioned earlier the Journey to Your Vision seminars and the value they offer. You've got one of those seminars coming up on June 10 in Dyersville. How can people sign up for that and find more information about what they can expect?
It's a really good question. So renewaliowa.com or go to iowafarmbureau.com and just click on the Renew Rural Iowa link. That will take you directly to the registration. I do want to note that these are entirely free, no obligation seminars. We're not selling you anything. It's literally being provided to you for your benefit. What you can expect is you will be in a room with 20, 30, 40, sometimes as many as 60 other business owners or management from businesses in the surrounding communities. And the whole point is to learn from one another. So it's a facilitated half-day session going through all these different stages of a business as it continues to evolve and grow. But you will find as a participant that you will be seated next to somebody who may be encountering different things than you, but they may be things that you would encounter 2 years down the road as you continue to grow. So grabbing their business card before you leave so that you can call them when you encounter whatever it is that they've already been through is a very valuable thing. So I would encourage anyone who's either currently in business or looking to start something to attend one of our sessions. And if Dyersville isn't close enough for you, there will be something close enough for you soon enough.
When you look at the current operating environment for rural entrepreneurs and businesses, what opportunities and challenges do you see?
I'm sure by now everybody's heard of the supply chain difficulties, and everybody's also noticed that every single business in this entire state is offering employment opportunities as well. And so those are the two most common challenges today, at least. But the way I sort of think about it is they also present opportunities. So, you know, if you're looking for a job and you want to try something new or you want to try something different, you can literally pick whatever it is you want to do because there's an opportunity for you. In addition to that, if you think about the supply chain stuff, I mean, part of, not entirely, but part of this is we've headed down a path for a very long time of outsourcing a lot of our key components in whatever it is that we make. And so I'm hopeful that while this is a challenge today, we will begin to see over my lifetime a more regionalizing of the supply chains as time goes forward. So if I'm a business owner and I currently get something from 2,000 miles away and I've had trouble getting it recently, maybe I can start looking locally or more regionally for that same thing or something similar. That would do a lot for all of our communities all throughout this country, frankly, but this state as well.
What's the best way for rural entrepreneurs to get connected with the services and expertise that Renew Rural Iowa offers?
So the easiest way is just you can go to renewaliowa.com, or you can go to Iowa Farm Bureau's website and click on the Renew Rural Iowa link. That's the easiest, fastest way. And then you can simply contact us through the contact information on that website. We're always available and always willing to chat, so do not hesitate with any questions at any time. That's literally what we're here for.
Give them a call. You heard Adam say that Renew Rural Iowa offers a variety of services to entrepreneurs. So if you're doing business in rural Iowa, you should find some support through the Renew Rural Iowa program that's going to help move your business forward. Adam mentioned renewruraliowa.com as a good starting point, so we've linked to that site in the notes for this podcast episode. We've also linked to the registration page for that upcoming Journey to Your Vision seminar in Dyersville on June 10th, and we've linked to the Ag Startup Engine page as well, so you can read up on those opportunities when you're done listening here. That's all for this episode of the Spokesman Speaks podcast. We hope you've enjoyed it and that you'll join us for our next one on May 16th. Thank you for doing the work that inspires everything we do here at the Iowa Farm Bureau, and thanks for listening to the Spokesman Speaks.
Thank you for listening to the Spokesman Speaks, a podcast by Iowa Farm Bureau. Check out more podcast episodes at iowafarmbureau.com/podcast. You can also find and subscribe to the Spokesman Speaks podcast in the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and other popular podcast apps. We appreciate your ratings and reviews, and we welcome you to email us your feedback at podcast@ifbf.org.